Good morning, Facebook, and welcome to Ryan Speltz Presents. Today we have Charity Bell, the CEO, founder, and owner of Guided Transactions. She's a transaction coordinator. Going to give us a little bit of value today on why we should be using transaction coordinators as agents and what it does for us. So Charity, I'm going to let you kind of roll through it, and I'll jump in with any questions I've got and take it away.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Yes, I've been a transaction coordinator, having my own company going on 3 years, but I've been involved in real estate since about 2014. But basically, I help the agent from contract to close. Like once the agent goes under contract, they send it over to me and I take care of, getting all of the information to the title company. And then I stay on top of the title and the lender. I have, tasks lists, like all the paperwork, because I know the agents want to be out there showing houses and handling their clients and building that rapport, and don't really want to deal with, all of the paperwork and all of the tasks that are involved with that, because there's, the title commitment, the loan commitment, the appraisal coming up. I'm there to follow up, and I'm there to be of an assistance to leverage the agent's time. So it's very, important to stay on top of those emails and on top of those tasks to make sure we don't fall out of contract. So I'm a good point of contact, for the lender, so I stay in touch with the lender, if they are missing an addendum or they're needing, let's say it's an FHA signed, a mandatory clause, whatever that may be. I can help the agent out by, sending that to get signatures and take care of that for them so they can go show houses and handle their clients and go, network and spend their time lead generating.
So yeah, and I know from the lending side as well, I know that I always appreciate when there's a transaction coordinator coming into play. And for the reasons you just stated, right? Like your job is to go chase down those documents and make sure that everything's in line. Now, how, as far as like, you said that you're from contract to close, how far involved with each, like, do you get involved with the client or is it just the agent? Like, explain a little bit more about the dynamic of how you kind of operate throughout your setup there.
Okay. So I stay in touch with everybody. I don't normally talk to the client unless the agent needs me to, because that's their client. But if they need me to call them or text them to remind them about signing a document or remind them, I don't handle the negotiating part of it and dealing directly. I mean, I do send out emails and I do talk to the buyer and the seller as needed, but I'm mostly like in touch with the title company with what they need, the lender with what they need, and my agent with what they need to make sure everything runs smoothly for the buyer and seller. Because I found out in the beginning when I started that I was bombarding the buyer or seller and they were just getting overwhelmed, and it needs to be simplified for them. So sometimes they will email me or ask me certain questions, and I keep my agent very involved in that as it's, their client. So I try to make it as simple as possible for the buyer and seller. And, I talk to mostly the agent, what they need. If they need me to call them, I will, but I'm not overstepping those boundaries because that's the agent's client. So I'm basically handling all the behind the scenes stuff and making sure it's as smooth for the buyer and the seller and they're not stressed out.
Yeah, I know one of the things we talked about before we jumped on live is just getting rid of the minutia, right? Like you said, like being able to get out there and not have to worry about all of the stuff, because that's really all it is, right? It's just stuff. Like it's, utilizing your expertise as an agent is not best utilized on paperwork after the deal's already started, right? Like that's
right. And I make sure, the utilities are taken care of, make sure I have a moving checklist that I'll send to the buyer or seller, try to simplify it for them. So that way, what's next? What do I do? Because if you don't communicate well with all parties, the buyer or seller get lost and confused. And then if there's so many people involved in the transaction, they don't know who to contact. So at least I had a buyer yesterday. No, it was a seller. They called me yesterday wanting to know where their funds were being sent to, what bank. And they were asking me if I had all the information. And I made sure I gave them, the titles information and the correct contact, because they just got so lost with everybody involved. So at least I'm a good point of contact to hold all of the resources together. So that way, if somebody is like, hey, I don't know what to do with this, then I'm like, I do. I'll put you in touch with them. I'll get this straightened out. So they're not lost or wondering what to do or what goes where and all of that. So I'm kind of like directing everybody.
Yeah, that wiring instructions is obviously a big hot topic
Oh, yeah.
in the industry, especially towards the end of those closings. I've had clients that, as a refinance client, that we don't send, and I advise our processors like, I'm not sending out wiring instructions because we can't get in the middle of that, and so we refer them to the title company. Well, the title company's email had gotten hacked, and so they sent it. An agent sees a name, or a client sees a name, and he sent about $3,500 that he never got back.
Wow.
And then the same week, I had someone wire $28,000, but the people that they to the wrong wiring instructions, but they miswrote down their fake account number, so the funds never made it to the account that he was gonna the scam artist, and so then the money got sent back. But yeah, that's an important thing, especially just being on top of that. And how do you approach a new contract? Like, what's the first thing that you would do?
Whenever I, start a file or an agent wants to use me, I do have my website where they can just go in and they can submit a contract with all of the information that I need to open up the contract. That like the name, number, the contract itself, the lender, anybody involved with that deal. And if I don't have everything in there, I will get it and I will find it. And that's how they would start a contract, is just going directly to my website and submitting it. Whether you're a new agent or a seasoned agent, whether you've worked with me or not worked with me, that would be the first step in getting started, is just going to my website, guidedtc.com, and then submitting the contract from there. And I'm more than happy. I usually do a phone call with my agents and explain it to them how it works, because some are like, well, I don't have enough business, to use a transaction coordinator. Well, there's many times I kind of help you learn the process as well, because I think some of the newer agents don't really understand the complete process and they can get lost with learning everything. And I can guide them, and then a seasoned agent is good because they don't have to worry so much about training me. And, they just basically, let me handle all the paperwork, and I learn how they like to handle their situation and their clients. And then I'm good to go. I'm like a plug and play, whatever is needed, whatever works best for the agent, I'm there to assist.
Yeah. And that's what you were saying there about being able to, especially as a newer agent, right? Like I feel like a lot of steam gets lost with these new agents because they get under contract and then they go, oh shit, what's next, right? Like they get swallowed up. And I've seen it on the loan officer side too, and we have that too, and as a branch, that's why I've gone the route I've gone with hiring a processor that takes over from contract to close, because that's, now you've created an expert in that realm.
Right.
That you are not the expert at, right? Like I'm good at getting the deal to closing, but Tina's a hell of a lot better than I am, so I might as well just give it to her, right? And that's a process, and it gets rid of all of that, me chasing a bank statement at the final hour when I should be out going and trying to find more business, or doing things like this and helping other people, go find more business for themselves. So, that's my biggest thing with and why I brought you on as far as value, because it just makes sense, right? Like it just makes sense for you to be inserted in there. What is the craziest thing that you've seen so far in being a guided transaction coordinator?
I don't know about like the craziest, but I do remember one time an agent had a listing contract that she had gotten. And then once it got under contract, she sent it to me. Well, then I'm looking at her listing agreement and it showed that the commission was like 2% and that she was giving the buyer's agent the full 2%. So I was like, that's odd and very nice of her, So I called her and I was like, so are you not taking a commission on this deal? I'm just checking. And she's like, oh my gosh, I filled it out wrong. Like she was gonna like lose out. Like if it would have ended up, in court or anything like that, it would have shown she didn't get a commission on that deal. And luckily she was able to go back and change it and fix it. So I try to be that extra set of eyes, for my agents. I want their best interest. I'm looking out for them all the time. And so that was something that was crazy. I was like, oh no, you're not going to get paid on this. But I'm like, if that's the deal, like that's the deal. But I just want to check. So it's, I think, good to have those second set of eyes, make sure those things are taken care of before, a problem occurs.
I got a comment here. It says that's a close call. And yes, that is something that, so if you want your commission saved, just call Charity and she'll get it saved. But no, that's, I mean, I've seen so many things like that where, agents, newer agents, of course, I mean, I don't want to say of course, but newer agents, one new agent filled out, in section 9, where we've got ABC that we check out, he checked the B box or the 2 box and basically like transferred all of that cost over simply because he thought that it would be better for him to choose the title company for his buyer. And it's like, he cost his buyer $3,500. Well, when they were in negotiations, he tried to go back and change it because he thought that would work. And of course, the selling agent who knows their stuff said, nope, not gonna work like that. So, that's one of the biggest things. And having somebody like you in their corner would allow them to kind of have, at least a phone call that says, hey, am I filling this out properly?
Right.
I think that's just having someone that's an expert in that realm is super important.
Right.
What are you seeing? I mean, obviously you're not getting into the aspect. Are your transactions starting to ramp back up coming into spring? Like what?
Yeah, the first 2 weeks of January were kind of slow. And then yesterday, it hit me, hard, and everybody's starting to like get under contract and, starting to explode a little bit right now. So it's busier than it was last January. So I compared like the stats like every year, and this is, the 3rd January, and it's, it's better already this year. And I do think it is a buyer's market. And I think that the lenders are offering some great incentives right now. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great year as far as getting contracts. I'm trying to get more agents. So that has, I've been getting more of those, and my name has been getting out there more, which is great, because I want to help as many agents as I can. I don't want to ever say no to anybody. And if I can't help you, I will find someone that can help you. And I'm trying to grow and, just train my agents that I work with too. Everybody has questions. I've been in this, for almost 10 years now, and I still have questions. I call like some of my seasoned agents and be like, hey, like I have this deal and I want to try to help this agent. And it's like, we're a team. So, we're not nobody's above learning and growing, and I'm constantly learning and growing. So, and I appreciate my agents that I work with that, teach me, and then I'm able to help others too. So everybody's experience, helps us.
Yeah, that networking aspect and being able to lean on that stuff. And, that's with these presents things that I do, that's really what these are for, right? Is to introduce people that are able to take that call and to say, hey, I'm here to help. And, I appreciated like the reach out that we've had in the past of, we've communicated before, and that's really what I appreciate. And that's why I wanted you to come on, because, I'm not going to just bring everybody and anybody on. I want actual value and good people on. And so let's see, if there was an agent going to send you a deal, what would be the single most important thing that person could do when they send you the deal? Obviously, besides the contract, because you got to
make sure I have everybody's email. Like that's so important. So I can get, all of the intros out with all of the information. Like sometimes they're always missing the email address. I'm like, oh man. So then I have to call, and if I can't get a hold of anybody, or I have to Google it, I'm like, oh, I just needed the email address so I can send the contract over to the title company or to the lender. Like having those contacts is so important. And having that, and then also, their brokerage login and everything, because I got to get those contracts submitted to their brokerage. Some agents like, oh, I need to send that to my brokerage. I'm like, yeah, you need to do that like within 48 hours. They're like, what? Like, give me the information. I'll get it to your brokerage. I know you're out running around today, but yeah, making sure I have login, for their brokerage so I can submit their compliance documents. I want to make sure they get paid at closing, and the sooner I get those in, faster they're going to get their DA and not have to worry about at least that part of it. So yeah, the emails, the contacts, and then their login information. So for their documents. So that's more important.
Okay. So can you just like give a brief, like what some of the things you just said? I was like, well, I have no idea. Obviously, I'm a lender, so I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. So just like a brief overview of what it looks like. Obviously, most of the people in here have been in through a transaction, but on your side of it, like what all, you've mentioned the paperwork, but what are you pulling away from the agent for them to, not have to deal with?
Okay. So it's not just the contract. Some brokerages, want a brokerage relationship form, a wire fraud, affiliated business disclosure, seller's property disclosure, lead-based paint, HOA. All of those documents need to be signed completely. And I make sure that there's no missing initials. I make sure that everything's ready to go for their brokerage. Then obviously their brokerage will check anything. If I missed anything, they send it back. And then I'm gonna be like, hey, I'll get this taken care of for you. We were missing initials here and we need to get that done. So that way you can get your DA. So I'm going to get all of those documents. And if you don't have them all signed and completed, I'm going to let you know before I send them out, because I don't want your client to be bombarded without you knowing or without you giving me the okay. But I can get them all sent out, get the signatures, get them uploaded to the brokerage. So that way you're staying in compliance with having your forms submitted on time. And that way you can make sure you are paid at closing and not have outstanding forms that need to be completed or filled out. So that's like the paperwork, a lot of it that I do. And then I have a task list too, to make sure, because if earnest money's not in on time, or if there's an appraisal contingency, I'm going to follow up on all of that stuff. And I have a task list. I have a program that I use that I populate all the tasks for that contract. So my agent's like, crap, when's the inspection period ending? And I'm like, don't worry, it's in a few days, but we need to, if you have any requests, we need to do that soon. So I'll send out reminders for that. I send to the lender. I'm like, hey, is the loan application good? Are we rolling? When's the appraisal scheduled? So I'm going to send out, I guess, ticklers, to everybody. So my agent isn't like, what's happening? What's going on? What's next? Like, did I get all the forms done? I'm going to stay in touch with my agent to make sure, hey, we're missing the wire fraud. This is very important. We need to get this signed. Or one of your buyers signed, but your other one didn't. We need to get this done as soon as possible. And I can send it out for them and make sure it's submitted on time.
Yeah, that's man, everything you're saying, I mean, it sounds like it's pretty fantastic. As far as we just got a question about licensing, and that's something I have no idea for you. What is licensing like for transaction coordinators? Are you able to work in any state, or is it Florida only? Like, obviously you have experience with Florida contracts, but what do you have as far as other states, or is that even possible?
So I am only in Florida. I could potentially, work outside of the state of Florida. Being a licensed realtor, you can only do so much. I mean, when you're not licensed, you can only do so much. So I would just have to be extra careful when talking to a buyer or seller about real estate when I'm not licensed in that state. But as far as expanding, I mean, maybe in the future, I know there's other transaction coordinators that I get mentored from, and they work with all of the states. So I know it's possible, and I don't think you have to be licensed in all of the states. They just have to be more careful, I guess, advising, because I don't know like the laws or the rules, and in other states they vary. So I just would have to be careful with that. But yeah, there are transaction coordinators that work in all 50 states and can do that.
Yeah, that's definitely there's intricacies in all the states, and that's why I'm sure that's why the question was asked, because we're licensed in 9 states, and some of the states are like South Carolina is a lawyer state, so everything is way different than everything
I think New
else.
York's like that too. They have to have an attorney involved as well as the title company, unless they're both. But yeah.
Yeah, and we're working on Puerto Rico, and I own a home in Puerto Rico, and it was the worst transaction I've ever been through in my life. So it's their title functions very weird. Like, they have 3 different systems, and they have to search all 3 systems to figure out which system that home is actually in. If it hasn't been sold since 1992, it may be like a handwritten document in a book somewhere. Like, it's crazy. So
yeah, it's definitely different in different states. And I'm very familiar with the Florida contracts. I haven't looked at the other state contracts, and I know they look different. So it wouldn't be in somebody's best interest to use me outside of the state of Florida unless I expand and learn those contracts in certain states, because I don't know all the paperwork required for other states. So that would be something I could expand later on. But yeah,
Sure.
there are transaction coordinators that do that, but I am not.
Yeah,
not
no,
right now.
that's and you know, that's good too, because having that focus of you know, you said 10 years of understanding Florida. Now obviously there's two different Florida contracts. Are you like, do you work with both of them? Are you mainly in a certain area, or how does
I've
that?
worked with residential, I've worked with vacant, I've worked with commercial. There's an as is contract and there's the residential contract. There's two different residential contracts. I've worked with all of them. So I'm familiar with them. I do as is contracts more often, but I have done, like I said, vacant lots, I've done commercial, and I've done the other residential contract. So I just try to get familiar with all of them. And if I haven't worked one in a while, I'll read through it, very carefully, make sure my agent understands it, make sure I'm checking everything and whatnot. But yeah, I work with all the contracts in Florida.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that this was awesome. I appreciate your time today, and I think that you know, if someone's not using a transaction coordinator as an agent, I'm a huge proponent of it. Like I said, like I've hired my own basically transaction coordinator with a processor and who can make sure all that stuff's done, because I won't say it's over my head, but it's stuff I don't want to do, right? Like it's it's a function, and to pass it to somebody like you that enjoys what you're doing and really understands everything, it just makes, it makes sense.
Yeah, I do enjoy it.
Yeah, and it it's a way to do it for for everybody, right? Like
Right.
it's a way to be
Like
entered
pull
into.
everybody together. We're all a team. Once we're under contract, we're all a team. We want this to get to closing. How can I help you? Like, my agent is my number one. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, how can I help, make this easy? Give me the paperwork. I'll get the signatures, like, let's just
Yeah,
make this
it's
smooth.
definitely that communication piece, and being able to add a steady
Right.
communication person with everything is awesome. So, well,
Right.
Charity, I appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future on some
Yes,
deals
of
from some
course.
agents in this group. And if you've got any questions for Charity, feel free to reach out. But we'll have a good one today, and let me know if you need anything.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right, we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye.